Hey everyone, Stephen Glicker here from Roll from Combat, and I just wanted to give an overview of what's been going on the last week since Hasbro announced all those layoffs. And I've been talking to people in the industry, I've been talking to people that were affected by this, and I have a little bit of info and just kind of a perspective of what's going on. So, first of all, if you don't know who I am, I'm Stephen Glicker. I publish products for both 5e and Pathfinder. You can check out our stuff at battlezoo.com. And director of game design is Mark Seifter, who was the co-creator of Pathfinder Second Edition. In addition, we also broke the OGL story earlier in the year. We actually broke it a day before Linda Codega, and then continued to, well, talk about it quite a bit. I'm actually going to be doing a recap of the OGL probably in January on Roll for Combat Live, which is every Wednesday at 3 p.m. Since then, I've been talking to a whole bunch of people, and this has been quite a year. Okay, when it comes to D&D, I really can't think of anything like this, and I've been playing D&D since the '70s. And let me tell you, there were some crazy years in the '80s, and this is the craziest of all of them. Anyhow, what's going on? So, first of all, obviously, my heart still goes out to everyone who was fired from Hasbro, including many people from WotC who were part of the core D&D team. And what I can't believe, and what makes this so different than the OGL scandal, was with the OGL scandal, it felt like we could actually do something. It felt like we actually had the ability to, we boycotted D&D, and then obviously a lot of people canceled their D&D Beyond subscriptions, and I know for a fact that that hurt them badly and that they were panicking. And from what I hear from people inside the company, that they were freaking out, is the exact term I heard. The executives were freaking out when they saw what was going on. So it felt like we had some power. But the problem with this is that it feels like we have no power. It's like, what can we do? Is there anything that we can do? I mean, sure, we can not buy Dungeons and Dragons and not support WotC, but in a weird way, does that hurt the hobby overall? Because for better or for worse, D&D is kind of, they're the big brother. They're the biggest thing in role playing, whether you like it or not. It's true. And if they die or if they collapse, will all the other smaller publishers collapse too? And it just feels like there's not a lot we can actually do about this. So, this is what I've been hearing from some of my friends. And they, and this is kind of horrible to say, they don't actually know what's going on. Okay, if you're watching this channel, you obviously probably are one of the hardcore that follow every piece of news that's going on in the OGL scandal and D&D and WotC. But I have a friend of mine, and this guy has been playing D&D since the '80s. He's finished multiple adventure paths. He plays in a weekly game of Dungeons and Dragons. He's on D&D Beyond, and I'd say he's part of geek culture. And he asked me, what is going on with WotC and what was this OGL thing? And I was thinking about this, is that, you know what? The average person probably has no idea what's going on. The average person probably, first of all, doesn't even know what OGL stands for or what it means. And more importantly, they don't care. Okay, all they want to do is buy some books and play some D&D, and they don't want to go into the minutia of what's going on with WotC and who's being hired and who's being fired. And they probably couldn't name anyone on the D&D development team if they tried. And that is both heartbreaking and probably the truth. And I am wondering, does any of this matter? Does it really matter for next year that D&D and Hasbro is on fire right now, that they are firing pretty much 30% of their company over the last year, which is ridiculous, and that they're about to announce this huge new 50th anniversary, and they're going to be celebrating D&D from 2024 to 2025, and that everyone has to be psyched in the company, and they're going to have to go to public announcements and talk about it. And I'm just sitting there going, how are they going to be able to do this? Are they going to be able to sell D&D knowing that they might be fired at any time, knowing that they can do an amazing job and make a huge amount of money for Hasbro and they can still get laid off? Is it doesn't matter, in fact, for anyone who works there. And something else is that Hasbro and WotC, like we often talk about Wizards of the Coast as a separate company, but here's the thing, they're not. Okay, we got to stop doing that. Okay, WotC, Wizards of the Coast, and Hasbro, they're the same company. Okay, we can call it WotC all we want. It's Hasbro. Okay, everyone at Hasbro. Okay, when Hasbro decides to fire people, they can fire people anywhere they want. Okay, they can fire people from the toy division. They can fire people from Magic Gathering. They can fire people from the digital division, art division, from Magic, from I said Magic, from D&D. Doesn't matter. Okay, it's one company. So that's something to keep in mind. Is that they might like to have you think that WotC is separate, but it's not. So that's something very important to keep in mind. It's all one company, and there's one boss in charge of everything. So with that being said, is this all going to matter? And I believe that Hasbro is hoping that, again, this will blow over. Is that by the summer, that people will once again forget this. And more importantly, is that there'll be no more stories about this, no more negative press, that all the press will be, oh, here's a new version of D&D, go out and buy it. And hopefully, the quote average person, the person who doesn't know anything about OGL, who doesn't know anything about these Hasbro firings, all they care about is this is a cool brand new version of D&D, and that they go buy it and then they go play it. But I wonder, and to answer my own question of D&D is burning, doesn't even matter, I wonder it might, because I have a feeling that yes, small amounts of evidence of some of my friends who play D&D, heck, they play Pathfinder, they play lots of TTRPGs. They have no idea what's going on. They don't have any inkling. They don't follow this. And they, I would say, are super hardcore geeks. They just don't follow this. But if the dungeon masters, if the people who really buy the game, who run the games, if they decide to no longer play D&D, if the channels that are out there, many of which are switching to Pathfinder, many of which I personally have been helping myself and Mark Seifter, these channels, to learn the rules of Pathfinder. Mark has literally been hired by multiple channels that did nothing but Dungeons and Dragons content, and they've come to myself and Mark asking for help to how to convert their 5e content to Pathfinder content, because they can't put all their eggs in one basket anymore. And Pathfinder continues to grow and looks like they're expanding like nonstop. So does it matter? And I don't know. In one hand, I'm going to say no, traditionally it doesn't, because if they get enough normal people, normies, if they get enough, that's an industry term, if they get enough people that have nothing to do and have no idea what's going on, what do they care? They can do as many bad things as they want and it doesn't matter, okay? EA is a perfect example. EA is routinely voted as one of the worst companies in America, and yet they still manage to make money and do very, very well. So does that hurt them? Obviously not. Not really. It doesn't help, but it doesn't hurt. And on top of that, at the end of this year, I'm seeing non-stop Game of the Year awards going to Dungeons and Dragons and Baldur's Gate 3. And these aren't just your average, oh, this is a good game. Now, I'm watching people in these long-form videos going on and on explaining that Baldur's Gate is not just the Game of the Year, but it is one of the greatest games ever made in history. And here's why. And I could do another video on that on itself. But they go into extreme detail, as this game is an instant classic that will continuously go down as one of, if not the greatest role-playing game of all time. And somehow, once again by sheer luck, Dungeons and Dragons is associated with this, which they had almost nothing to do with directly. It was all Larian Studios. Larian Studios is the one that made and created that game. And Dungeons and Dragons is just along for the ride. So, in the end, I don't know. Doesn't matter. I guess we're going to find out next year. And as for what you can do, I would say support TTRPGs, support third-party TTRPGs. If you wanted to try out Pathfinder or Starfinder or Shadow Dark or Pendragon or Star Trek the RPG or have the Rambo one right next to me, try them, okay? Just buy them and try them. You don't have to play Dungeons and Dragons, okay? That's not the only game out there. In fact, I played Starfinder for 2 years straight, and we absolutely loved it. In fact, it was the first time since, I don't know, since the 80s that I played a game that wasn't a fantasy role-playing game, and I loved it. I also learned that I prefer fantasy role-playing games, but I was glad I played Starfinder, and I was glad I gave it a try. And I have also played many other games. And sure, I'm not going to play a long form game of Dungeon Crawl Classics. I like to play it in small bursts, but at least I try and play other games. And that is what I would recommend. If you are watching this and you've never played anything except 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, try something. Just try it. Go to a convention. Try a small game. Just do a pickup game just to see, just so you learn how other games work. And this is the most common thing I hear, especially from a lot of people that are moving to Pathfinder. I'm not going to get on the Pathfinder train. I do believe it is superior in many ways than 5e. I do love Dungeons and Dragons. Trust me, I've been playing D&D since 77. I love D&D. But at the same time, there's a lot of issues with 5th edition that I feel that Pathfinder fixes. So give that a try. Or if you don't want to try that, if you want to try, I don't know, I'm trying to look here. What do I have here? I got a whole bunch of games. If you wanted to try something like Dune, okay? Give it a try. It's supposed to be a great game. I haven't played it yet. I've only read it, but give it a try. That's what you can do. That's how you can help out the industry. Don't be locked into D&D because it gets depressing. You see what's going on with D&D, you see what's going on with Hasbro, you see what's going on with WotC. You feel helpless and you feel like if this game goes down, what am I going to do? Am I in trouble? And the answer is no, you're not. That's the good thing, is that there are other games out there, and yes, if D&D goes down, other games will survive. I promise you. The industry and the hobby isn't going anywhere. With that, do check out our Roll for Combat live show this Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern. We're going to go through the history of WotC in 2023 and what a year it was, especially because I was right in the middle of it pretty much most of that year. And we're going to go through a whole retrospective with both myself and Mark live with a special guest. Haven't figured that out. And of course, if you want to check out any of our 5e and Pathfinder content, many of which is free, check it out at battlezoo.com. Otherwise, thanks for listening, and I'll talk to you later.